I will now recognize the gentleman from California, Mr. LaMalfa, to address the House for so much time as he may consume.
Thank you again for my colleague from Utah for leading this tonight, as we certainly have plenty of things to talk about and what Congress and our federal government should be doing. The topic I'm going to hit on is the crime situation. Now, you'll hear different things reported in the news on how is crime in the U.S. Well, I think normal people, regular everyday Americans, see that it's a problem. But the way it's reported or the way it's spoken about under the Biden-Harris administration is like, oh, crime is not a problem, crime is down. Tell that to the people, the storefront owners in various blue cities where you see these massive break-ins by hordes of people smashing their way in and smashing the countertops and all that, taking cell phones and jewelry and whatever else might be on their minds. So where do they come up with these statistics, though, like crime is somehow down? Well, we're seeing more and more evidence that perhaps the mayors of these blue cities, perhaps other leaders, are telling their people to not report them. So if the police departments in many jurisdictions around this country are underreporting what's really going on, I guess that's how you can skew the statistics to look like they're better and that crime is somehow down. But I tell you, theft is up, breaking and entering is up, violent crime is up, and it's due to lax policies. Now, as a member from California here, it's very acute in some of our large cities, as well as we have these soft on crime recent efforts being made by the Newsom administration and others that have basically made it almost a free-for-all in my home state. For example, the dollar amount got bumped up several years ago via one of the propositions, fooling the voters as to what the proposition was actually doing on crime. You know, Prop 47, which is one of the big problems, was known generically as a Safe Neighborhoods and Schools Act, yet all it did was relax the level of felonies down to misdemeanors to the level of $949. That means you can steal $949 worth of stuff out of the store and still have it be just a misdemeanor instead of a felony as it should be. So people go in sometimes with calculators and add up, how much can I steal? And brazenly carry it out the door because there's not enough police around. And of course, the retailers, especially the large corporate box retailers, say, oh, don't dare go try and impede them. Don't go talk to them. Don't even go out in the parking lot and take a picture of their car or their license plate because we don't want to offend them or we don't want to incur that somebody might get injured. Well, I tell you, people are getting injured by this happening. The price of everything, the stores, I mean, look how many stores are closing around the country as it is. And then tell that to the mom and pop stores that only have one or maybe two markets that they deal with, and that they're not supposed to do anything about this rampant crime, the rampant stealing happening in their places there. So this was put in part by, in my home state, legislation called AB 109, which is supposed to be trying to help empty overcrowded prisons, as they termed it at the time. Now, I don't know if the prisons are overcrowded. I've actually had a chance to visit them, and thankfully they let me out of them when they were done with the visit. But you see prisons designed with 2 bunks in them, and they're only keeping one person in there due to somebody's idea of how that would be crowded. And so what else happens? When the federal court ruled that California had overcrowding, they started trying to release prisoners to meet a number, but also the state had several outside of the state prisons it was contracting with to take some of its extra prisoners. But what do they do first thing? They bring those back. They bring them back from out of state, which is that they're actually getting a good deal on the cost of keeping them in those out of state prisons. They actually brought them back home so they could crowd them even more and have even more to release. Does that make an ounce of sense to anybody? So crime is up in California because they're releasing more. Under AB 109 called realignment, it pushed more and more hardened criminals down to the county jail level, which means now the county jails have to deal with them. Now when they got more normal neighborhood crimes, or even something up to the level of assault or stealing a car, things like that, there's no room for them. So they're releasing people normally would have a local county jail on their own recognizance or on a small amount of bail or what have you, until now they get rid of bail as well. So you keep pushing the problem down, and now we have chaos at the local level for what our sheriffs, our jailers, our district attorneys have to deal with locally. It all starts at the top on this. And so with the crime wave you saw during the riots that one summer, like in Portland and Seattle and Minneapolis, especially I want to underline Minneapolis here, because where the Biden-Harris administration wants to claim crime is down, you saw Kamala Harris actually advocating for people to send in money so they could bail out the people that were there, that were arrested for all the chaos and damage and vandalism and burning of Minneapolis. Oh, let's chip in to help get them out, because she thought that was some form of justice. Now in this campaign, she seems to want to run away from all that and run as a, change in her spots to some other, as a political chameleon would do. So there's no lack of crime, there's no lack of prisoners. In my home state, again, bringing the ones back from private or other prisons out of state to crowd ours even more, and then closing down more and more prisons. Gavin Newsom has in mind closing down 4 more. And I keep telling people, it's not like we're running out of bad guys. Our population of the state and our country increases anyway, so you think generically the number of prisoners or number of criminals is going to increase probably commensurately with that, especially in these times where we're encouraging people to do it with lax laws. So you had AB 109, you had Prop 47, fooling the voters by saying it was somehow a Safe Neighborhoods and Streets and Schools Act. Indeed, it just lowered the level. Then Prop 57 came in, and it had some horrific crimes that made into just misdemeanors and less, including some forms of date rape and things like that. It's horrific. So those 3 things will help put California in this mess, and a lot of times this body here tries to emulate what California does. And certainly the White House, bringing a lot of Californians in when they came into power to emulate what California does. And that ain't good for the country. So what we have in California, for example, now is to counteract a lot of the provisions of Proposition 47, is one currently on the ballot called Proposition 36, which will restore some of the jail sentence lengths, some of the crime classifications back up to what really should be a penalty, and doing other things that are going to tighten up the idea that crime is so far paying in California because they can walk away and get away with it. You're seeing more and more as people go into these markets and stores and big box stores, and when they're catching somebody coming out, obviously with armloads of stuff they haven't paid for, they're disguising themselves, etc., that this is somebody stealing. You're seeing more citizens stepping up saying, nah, I'm not going to watch this happen. They're detaining because the store won't do it. So I consider that kind of heroic, actually, but some in the corporate level might say, oh, they shouldn't do that because someone might get injured or whatever. But when the buyers, when consumers see that their prices are going up because you can't keep insurance anymore, they go into a large box retailer and find everything is locked up. I don't know how it's this way all around the country, but the retailers, many of them in my home state, are locking up a whole bunch of the items. You have to go ask a clerk to come open it up so you can get into the makeup counter or some of the medicine counter. I hear even like socks and underwear in some cases are being locked up behind glass, or the tool section. And you have to have people come help you to get these items because it's going to walk out of there otherwise. So crime is down? I don't think so, because we're seeing those effects. You're seeing in places like San Francisco more and more corner markets and drugstores. They might have quite a few of a particular chain of drugstore in downtown. Well, they're closing several of them, because of the rampant conditions of theft and other things going on in the city. Why are they promoting this? Why are their city leaders allowing this? It's a mystery to me. But it does start at the top, and when we get the signal being sent from the White House and even Congress of soft on crime, this is what the results are going to be. So again, in my home state, voters have an opportunity with Proposition 36 to turn back that tide at least somewhat. Even the retailers were behind it there, which generally they're kind of afraid to upset the apple cart in Sacramento because of the 3-to-1 Democrat majority there, and they don't want to make them mad. But so far they're sticking with it, which is actually admirable for a change. So fentanyl, drug charges that have been made weaker during this time would actually be increased and put back in place in Prop 36. We're not talking about just a guy being caught with a little bit of marijuana, as Kamala Harris has kind of made famous. We're talking about serious drugs and serious amounts of them being dealt out there that is going to be curtailed, at least in part, by Prop 36, which I hear it's polling quite well, and I hear Governor Newsom has actually given up on it too. He went so far as to say, with all the support for Proposition 36, because the people are speaking back with their initiative process, that they're tired of the crime, they're tired of the inaction by the government, that he says, I don't know what state I'm in. Well, Governor, I think I agree with you, because I don't know that you know what state you're in either. It's pathetic. And he doesn't seem to care much about neighborhoods and regular folks that have to deal with this stuff. Lastly, this crime extends to our border. We're talking about this Biden-Harris administration, the czar, Vice President Harris, allowing 530,000 illegal immigrants to be flown in on aircraft into our country and then turned loose because we can't possibly process them. They're ending up in your neighborhoods. And they're overwhelming some of these neighborhoods. They're overwhelming the school system. They're overwhelming the other services, hospital, all that, because they're just flying them in for an unknown reason. They'll try and cloak themselves in the idea that they're helping refugees or something, but it's way beyond that, especially when you find, talking to them at Border Patrol, that a high ratio of them are coming from China, and these are likely going to be agents of China's efforts to undermine the United States. So, we're expecting also maybe another 800,000 of them are going to be attempted to be brought in by the Harris-Czar situation. They get 2 years of humanitarian parole and work permits, but they're not even tracked whether they depart or not. Completely blowing the idea of what asylum is as a temporary respite for people in a bad situation in another country. We're still sympathetic towards that, but there's no holds barred on how it's being abused, especially these last 3.5 years. ICE officers are overwhelmed by the work that they're having to do at the border and with the expectations of parole that they have to deal with. 8 million illegal immigrants have come into this country under this administration. 8 million. That's more than the size of several states. But they go on and push the Border Patrol out of the way and take their jobs and really demean them. The morale is as low as it's ever been. But the last kicker on top of this, when the administration orders the Border Patrol agents to underreport, to skew the statistics, to basically be forced into lies about how many people are coming in, especially those on the terror watch list, we've got a serious problem. People need to be brought up on charges for that. Not the Border Patrol guys that are trying to execute their plan, but people in the administration that are telling them to lie about it. How pathetic. How deranged. Excuse me. So, we have a lot of choices to be making in the next few months here. And the American people, tired of the crime, tired of the civ at the border, can make some very clear choices if they want to improve this. In my home state of California, Prop 36 will go that way. But also demanding from your politicians that they care about them and their communities and their storefronts and their ability to do normal business like the United States used to be until this administration has made such a farce of our borders and fighting crime. So with that, Americans, please pay attention this fall and ongoing. Thank you. I yield back.
Thank you to the gentleman from California.